All right, everybody. Good afternoon slash early evening. Before I get into the content of this video, I will be streaming tonight with the Hawk's Nest at about 7 o'clock PST, Pacific, West Coast time, over on his channel today. So if you're not already subbed over to the Hawk's Nest, get over there, make it happen. We will be streaming for at least an hour tonight, talking about the last preseason game, talking about the final roster, some practice squad stuff, some news, etc., etc. You guys know how we do it by now. But get on over there if you're not already. Stream should go live at about 7, and we're going to talk Seahawks for as long as there is stuff to talk Seahawks about. Now, I'm making this video because I know a lot of people are going to be asking about it. People are going to want to know what I think. People are going to want me to give my thoughts. It's not Seahawks news, but Seahawks fans have their opinions on it, right? Like, there's no doubt. Seahawks fans care about this because he was our quarterback for 10 years, and one of the many reasons why we moved on was financial. And now we get to see a big chunk of that financial that may have scared us off of keeping Wilson. So I am going to go ahead and make this video about it. So for those of you who maybe haven't heard yet, Russell Wilson has signed an extension with the Denver Broncos on top of the contract that he already had from the Seahawks, where they're tacking on another 5 years and $245 million. I think 165 is guaranteed, so a majority of the contract is guaranteed. So that takes him to a career earnings in the NFL that very few players in NFL history have even sniffed, and only a handful are going to get to even over the next decade probably. So he is now a Bronco through his age 40 season, assuming the contract is allowed to expire. But more realistically, you are looking at him probably doing this again in his late 30s, because we all know that most NFL contracts do not see that final year. Now, I'll tell you this right now. This is not my concern anymore as far as I'm concerned. So this is a more objective talk. This is just me making this video because I know people are going to want to talk about it. I'm going to get a ton of comments about it. I'm going to get a ton of stuff in streams about it. So just to give you my thoughts, well, let me lead off with this one. Let me just lay this out there right now. I don't really care that much. Whether or not this contract works for the Broncos or not is not my concern anymore. I'm not a Broncos fan, and I'm moving on to what the Seahawks now have instead of Russell Wilson. And so far, I can't really criticize it, right? Like, we got Charles Cross, we got Boye Mafe. I love those guys. We've got 2 picks next year. We've got some players who, well, okay, Shelby Harris looks good. Noah Fant could go either way, and Drew Lock is Drew Lock. But I'm not getting too wrapped up in what Wilson is doing. I am interested to see how this goes, because I'm not sure how this goes. I think this could go a few different ways over in Denver. And I do kind of want to see it. But in terms of this contract, again, as a Seahawks fan, it's just not my concern anymore. He lives up to it. He doesn't live up to it. He makes Broncos fans happy. He makes them mad. We're not even in the same conference. We're going to play each other once this year and then maybe not see them again until Wilson's an old man. So, yeah, I'm relatively unmoved by this. And what I will say about this is, you see that big number, 245 million, you go, whoa, he did it again. But let's talk this through. And Spotrac is going to allow me to do that. So let's take a look here. 2022 cap hit, 17 million. Very cheap for a franchise quarterback. Even a low-level franchise quarterback. 2023, 22 million. Again, very reasonable. Even a average quarterback is probably going to cost about that much. 35 million, 35.5 million in 2024. Okay, getting a little higher, but guys, I've said this over and over again. The cap is about to skyrocket. These numbers that you're looking at only mean something in the context of the salary cap. So to just look at 35.5 million and go, whoa, that's a big number, you got to go a little deeper than that. It's a big number in context of what you and I make at our jobs. Is it a big number in the context of what an NFL team makes over the course of the year? By the time we get there, not really. And by the way, that goes for the next 4 years on this contract as well. 2025, $55.5 million. Whoa, so much money. Except by the time we get there, the salary cap, who knows what it'll have done by then. We know it's going to go up. It's probably going to go way up. And $55 million then is going to look like $35 million does now, maybe. $58.5 million the next year, $53.5, $54.5. These numbers, if you just look at them as numbers, you're going to say, oh, that's more money than I would make if I lived to be 1,000. Okay, yeah, sure. But is it actually a lot of money to an NFL team and an NFL salary cap? I'm guessing by the time we get there, probably not. And this kind of all goes back to a thing that I've always tried to stick to when it comes to any player in the NFL, but especially a guy like a Russell Wilson, because there was so much consternation about this from Seahawks fans over the last several years. I'm not a stickler for how much money a player is making. I'm a stickler for how that player is playing on the football field, okay? It's not about money. The money can work itself out. But at the end of the day, if you want elite level play, you got to provide elite level pay. And for years and years, Wilson was living up to that elite level pay. He was providing elite level play. The reason why I was okay moving on from him when we did, not that I completely advocated for it, but the reason why I was cool with it is not because he was going to ask for too much money or making too much money. It's because he stopped playing good. The way he played last year, I wouldn't want him for $25 million. The way he played last year, I don't even know if I would want him for free, because at that point I'd be like, okay, can we move on, find guys with upside, guys who might be a little better than this, guys who might not just completely melt down on every single obvious passing down? It's not about money. The money will work itself out. You draft well, you get cheap players, cheap labor, cheap talent. That's the part that has to work when you have super expensive players like Wilson was and will continue to be. You draft well, the money is not going to be a big problem. So that's my thing here. People get way too caught up in like, oh, that's a big number. Yeah, it is. Would it be slightly easier if it was a smaller number? Would it be slightly easier to build your team? Yeah. But the real question you need to be asking is the value he's providing to the team commensurate with the amount of money that he's asking for? Like, these numbers, these cap hit numbers, are not what concerns me when it came to Wilson or most players. That's not the number that turned me to a point where I was like, if we trade him, it's okay. No. It's numbers like this. Wins above replacement. Last year, Russell Wilson had by far the lowest wins above replacement of his career. Lower than when he was on his rookie deal as a bus driver on a super stacked team. This is the number that turned me to a point where I was like, okay, if we trade Wilson, I'm not going to be upset about it. You can see over 4.5 wins above replacement in 2019. 2020, even with his second half swoon, 3.5. And then not even 1.5 in 2021. That's the number I care about. So you guys can care about your salary cap numbers all you want, but that's what I care about. So at the end of the day, whether or not this contract is good is going to be determined by what he does on the football field for the Broncos. If he plays well, then this contract is totally fine. By the way, there's a pretty cheap out after 2026. In 2027, he's going to be due 53.5, but only 13 million dead if you cut him. Not even 13. So it's not as much as it looks like. It's actually probably about $100 million less, maybe even a little bit more less than that. So the number that you're seeing, $245 million, is probably not reflective of what he's actually going to get. So that's the bottom line. If Wilson goes to Denver and plays at a top 3 level for the next few years, I don't think any Broncos fans are going to be sad they gave him a bunch of money. But if he doesn't play well, if he plays like he did last year, again, lowest wins above replacement of his career by far, then they're going to be mad they have him, period. It's not even going to matter the money, because in the NFL, the quarterback is everything. So if he's not going to play well, if he's going to play the way he played last year, then he's not worth the $49 million a year he got in this extension, but he's not worth $25 million. He might not be worth $15 million, especially if this trend continues to follow the pattern it has over the last 2 years. I mean, that's a pretty stark drop off from his peak. Pretty definitive. So if it keeps going that way, it's going to be bad, not just because of the money. No, it's going to be bad that he's there at all. So yeah, I think that we as football fans who understand the basic structure of the salary cap, sometimes we get too caught up in those numbers. It's not your money, okay? It's the owner's money. And the owner is making crazy amounts of money running the team. The team makes money. The games sell out. People pay ridiculous amounts of money for tickets. I guess if you go to the games, it kind of is your money. It's a little bit of your money, but no one's making you go to the games, right? So, look, this contract, yeah, it's big. It's intimidating. But at the end of the day, Wilson's value is not determined by the number on his check. It's determined by his play on the football field. So we're going to find out what we need to find out this season when he actually gets out there. So those are my thoughts. It's a little surprising they did it now, admittedly. But again, it's not something that I have to concern myself with anymore because he's not on my team. So we'll see what happens next. See you guys later. Go Hawks. 2 hours. We're going live with the Hawks Nest over on his channel.